Actually, no, I watched longer than that. I watched, I guess, about an hour, 15 minutes of it by the time I got there. So, whenever we're talking about, the presidential debate that's on there, what is supposed to be portrayed in a presidential debate? What's that? Okay.
Like why they should consider getting rid of Trump and Biden, maybe like for the future.
Yeah, you're selling yourself, correct? Uh-huh. Yeah. So, like, they had a list of 6 to 8 subjects that they were going to talk about. And those subjects, not today, man. Okay, gotcha. So the idea of the 6 to 8 topics that we're going to get covered, so that way the American people could be able to actually form an opinion based upon, who should you vote for one way or the other based upon their beliefs. So that way you are represented in a representative democracy. That was pretty tough to sift through all the back and forth and find out what the issues actually were that were on there. Okay. What are some of the major issues that you see that could affect you directly right now? Okay, COVID is number one, right? I mean, to you it is, because that's one of the biggest issues that impact your day-to-day life operations. Think of some other things that may impact your parents on a day-to-day life operation. What's that?
Like taxes and money now.
Taxes are big, right? How much money is taken out of my pocket, okay? Or on the other hand, how much money is given to me. So that could also be another big deal that is there, especially through COVID, through the times of, the idea of layoffs, employment, unemployment, availability of jobs. Those are big issues to your parents. So they can put a roof over your head. Okay, what else?
Like the discrimination and the right.
Huge right now, correct? We talked about this back during our 9/11 assignment. Like the only time that America really, within the past, goodness, many, many, many years, has showed a lot of unity was 9/11. And right now we're kind of in a very decisive state to where, there's a lot of division that's in there. How would you handle it? How would you fix it? That would be a topic that should be addressed to the president of the United States or the candidate for the president of the United States. Okay, what else? Because you're listing good topics. That's good. Anybody else think of anything? So some of the other topics that we'll go over here, Supreme Court appointees, who's going to be a judge, COVID-19, all right, the idea of track records of people that are in office. So however long you've been in there versus however long you've been in there. That was another big deal. Okay. The idea of how to seal the fate or promote healing within the United States based upon the racial divide and other things that are there. Okay. So those are 4 of the topics. We'll look at the rest of them here in a second. Okay. What I want you to do right now is, if there's 5 things that you can think of that went on from the tidbits of information that you got, all right, I want you to write those down. Okay, you got about 5 minutes. If you can't think about them, I'm going to show you about a 7-minute clip of some of the highlights of the presidential debate last night, and then you can kind of fill in the rest of them from that right there. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 5 minutes.
You can also look it up.
Yep, if you need to look it up, you can look it up. Yes, ma'am. Like your general opinion on it? Yeah.
No, like something like write it down.
Okay.
So if you didn't watch it or anything, look it up on your phone, look up information. That way, you're going to get different information based on which site you look at. You can get a lot of different information. You're going to get about 4 different options depending on what to look at. You're going to get pro or anti-Trump or pro or anti-Biden. You're going to get both of them.
Just write down the 5 things that you can think of, if you can, and about what was talked about, what could have been talked about, what was accomplished last night. If you can't go up with 5 of them, write down as many as you can. I'm gonna show you a 7-minute clip, and then you can write down the rest of them from that. If you're looking stuff up online, all right, honestly, you're gonna see 4 viewpoints. One of them is gonna be pro for the Republican Party. One's gonna be negative for the Republican Party. You'll see a pro for the Democratic Party. You'll probably see a negative for the Democratic Party, because they're gonna cover all sorts of vast deals. It all depends on what the agenda of the website or whatever you're going to see is going to get covered, whatever the agenda of the writer is. There's not a lot of unbiased, writing in most parts today. So whenever you look at stuff, kind of understand that you're probably you still got to form your own opinion based upon the information that's given to you. Why is this really important to you? Why is this really important to you? Okay, decide your future. And also, and for you guys, I mean, most of you guys are what, 15, 16 should be. So within 2 years, and you're able to vote, okay, you'll still have 2 years left of whoever is the president now to continue forming your opinion. So technically, you're forming your opinion right now of kind of what you're going to vote like, more than likely within, the next 2 years, as far as whether it's for a House or a Senator or a representative or anything else that goes on.
Will they be able to vote for what's the plan point?
Should be, yes, sir. The split of 2 years on the terms of there. One of the big ones last night was they were showing, like I said, they had a runoff for the lady in Dallas that tore up the bill, the ticket she got for being the hair salon stylist that operated during COVID. And now she's going into the idea of politics and getting votes enough to have a runoff because of it. So again, a lot of people, it's not necessarily what have you done for me, it's what have you done for me lately, and that's kind of a fresh name that's in politics right now, and kind of how a lot of stuff goes on. I see the formation of what's changed. All right, I'm gonna play this clip, and then I'm gonna move this out of the way.
So is it our opinion about Trump and Biden, or is it our opinion about what?
It's about.
I really want to know what they talked about, as compared to necessarily just what your overall opinion about either person is. Okay, so like I'm going to show you this clip right here. All right. So what this is supposed to be, this is the moderator, which is supposed to be able to, number one, control the actual debate. Didn't necessarily happen because there was a lot of back and forth that wasn't there. A normal debate, if Caesar comments and he has 2 minutes to speak, then you give the other person an uninterrupted 2 minutes. Then you give the next person 2 minutes as a rebuttal without interruption from either side. I don't think that ever happened last night. Everything from both sides was back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. So it was a pretty, I guess, not uneventful at all, but it was pretty, it wasn't accomplishing to be able to actually get the points across about what the American people needed to do on either side to figure out who to vote for. Kind of confusing. So I'm going to show it to you. And as a young person, you probably definitely will be confused right here. All right, here we go.
President Trump and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I've beaten the whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every
All he
Friday
knows how to
on
do
Super
is.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky, and we get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed-
want to make
you're
sure,
the
I want to make
You
sure,
graduated last in your class,
I-
not first in your
I want to make
Mr.
sure,
President, can you let him finish, sir?
he doesn't know how to do that. He has, you know,
Surprised.
you pick
Be surprised.
the wrong guy, the wrong night, at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders.
The whole idea,
Let him,
there is no manifesto, number
please let
one.
him speak, Mr.
Number two,
You just lost the left.
number two,
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan that
Folks,
absolutely.
folks,
agreed
do you have
to,
any
and
idea
that-
what
that
this clown's
socialized, they
doing?
call it
Mr.
you have any
President,
idea?
Socialized medicine.
Let people know, we're senators. I'm not gonna answer the question
Why would you
because
answer that
because
question?
the question the question
Supreme Court
is,
Justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on
so,
your list?
gentlemen, I think
this
we
is
have
so
ended
unprecedented.
we have ended this segment. We're gonna move on.
A lot of people die, and a lot more are gonna die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President,
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done
Let's
nothing.
have this
And
debate.
if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
And
we're
it's
gonna
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
okay.
Oh, Mr. President,
But
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
So not 700.
Millions of dollars. And you'll get this.
He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm gonna eliminate the Trump tax cuts.
Well, why didn't you do it over 20 the last 25 years?
Because you
Why
weren't
did
president,
you do it over?
because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. and
You're the worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever
Hey,
had.
hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just say, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll
And
tell you
what
what,
does that mean?
from a common sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're
tell
going
you
to
what
tell
it
your people
means.
to take?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are
out
you gonna do?
80
And
million
what will you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to, these people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice
You
President
think that's
Biden,
good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted? And will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland? Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that.
specifically
But
do it? Go
I
ahead, sir.
would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right
So
wing.
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well, then
peace.
do it, sir.
Say it, do it, say it. You want to call them what do you want to call them? Give me a name, give me a name.
White supremacists and
Who
white
would you like me to condemn?
supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, but I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem, this is a left.
FBI director.
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
You got it.
Not militia. That's what
It is an idea.
his FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
well, thank you and good night.
All right, so you should be able to finish your 5 comments from there. And then Mr. Dibble's gonna come around and he's gonna pick up those note cards
Make sure you
from
put
you.
your name on it.
Yeah, make sure you have your name. Everybody's got to turn one in for a grade. If you are at home online, you can either email that to me with 5 comments on it.
Sometimes that's the way it makes it a little. Yeah. We'll talk about it in a second. So. Tired?
Come.
I'll pick them up in a second.
All right, so one of the skills that you guys kind of need to understand how to do is, again, how to not look like that from either side and be able to actually discuss things back and forth with each other. Okay, so based upon your opinion, and this is kind of how this goes, if you can discuss these things with each other through the classroom, because eventually this right here will become world history. What you need to be able to understand is, how can I converse back and forth as a correct acting adult that's in there? All right, so what were some of the main topics that you got out of that? Raise your hand and tell me. What are some of the main topics that you got out of that? Yes, sir.
Like some, make their like reporters, like stay calm and not riot and stuff.
Okay, so the idea when they were saying, if we're waiting to see who wins, would you make sure that your supporters stay calm? Both sides, yes or no? They asked that question that was there. Okay, why was that brought up? Why was that brought up? Yeah. Okay. So based upon some recent, judging ideas, especially with police and things like that, a lot of people now don't necessarily just voice their opinion. They physically voice their opinion based upon, rioting, looting, tearing up stuff, which in the end, very confusing because you're creating more harm than you are getting your ideas expressed like certain people did. Let's say Martin Luther King, you know what I mean, in the past, with the idea of nonviolence and people actually listening. But then you also see the other point of it, of where people are like, well, I've been trying this for this long and nobody listens. So therefore I have to extend myself out to do something that somebody will pay attention to. Okay. That's the same thing a toddler does. You know what I mean? If a toddler doesn't get what he wants, Generally, he gets louder, throws a louder tantrum with it. Barnes, do you have something there? Okay, tax cuts to who? Okay, so tax cuts are good. And generally, that is a key political point made by both parties. Okay, what he was wanting to say there was is that he wanted to eliminate the tax cuts to the rich. Okay, so we talked about some other things like early on with the introduction of Christianity, or the introduction of another government, or the introduction of something. What was the selling point? Who did they try to sell it to? Did they try to sell it to the rich, or did they try to sell it to the poor? The poor, because there's more of them, right? So you're trying to kind of sell it to the masses. So if you're trying to sell tax cuts, you generally try to sell tax cuts of the minority's going to get a tax cut here, and I'm going to give a tax cut to the majority of you. A lot of presidential candidates call upon the middle class, the lower middle class, because that's the most people in the United States. Now, our lower middle class is a lot better than a lot of countries' lower middle classes. Yes, sir.
Like, how does someone like designate the rich and poor? Is there like, or how much someone makes or?
Yes, sir. So when you get older, the more money you make, the more taxes you get taken out of your paycheck. So you fall within a bracket. If you make, let's say, $100,000, you get this percentage taken out. If you make $101,000 to this amount, you get this much taken out. So everything is based upon taxes. Same thing, you get a check right now, probably, and the government takes out taxes. Okay. The more money you make, the more taxes they take out. Now, the writing part of it in the big political debate for the people is how much is the correct amount to take? Like if somebody makes $3 billion, their taxes are technically this much as what they feel out of their pocket. If somebody makes $40,000, that feels like a lot to them losing out of their pocket because they're trying to make ends meet. So that's a big deal based upon the overall tax scheme of it. Okay, what else? What else did you gather from the clip of the debate? Yes, sir. Or anything? Yes, sir.
Never talk about healthcare.
Okay, what about it?
When they talk about Obamacare.
That was a huge deal, right? So tell me a little bit about, and again, you can state your opinions or whatever you want to do. This is your floor. But what was the focus on healthcare?
I think what I remember from it was Biden was trying to like make it grow. Trump was trying to like stop it.
Okay. The idea of healthcare for all was a huge deal 4 years ago, or reforming it to where it didn't cost as much for everyone. So the availability of healthcare for everybody, or where do you get the money to make it available for everybody? Because it's got to come from somewhere. You know what I mean? If I bring 5 pizzas in here and I feed all of you, somebody had to pay for it. So where does the money come from to pay for it if everybody's going to be able to have it? Okay, what else? Anything? Antifa, that's a big deal right now, right? So kind of the same thing of, what does an extremist mean? What does that mean? We're going to get into this as far as whenever we, teach the idea of Islam. There's a difference in how you associate Islam and how most people associate extremist Islam, because that's all you guys have heard, a lot of throughout the media time that you've been born. So what's the difference in an extremist and a regular person? Okay, yeah, they go overboard, right? I go to the extreme of what it is. You can have an extremist on the left. You can have an extremist on the right. Okay, it's somebody that doesn't just stop here. They go overboard of what it is. Okay, both of those people, honestly, generally are wrong because they go too far to one direction. So, you can have somebody that feels that this guy is really wrong, but somebody feels this guy's really right. Well, then you flip it. It's the same thing on both sides. Most of the time, if you go to the extreme or you're over the extreme, you're probably wrong. It's on that right there. What else? Let me read some of your things. Okay. See, from y'all, it says Trump's association had to establish a no interrupting period. Biden and Trump interrupted each other. They both insulted each other. Trump evaded the tax question. Trump is building back up the economy. Okay. So out of that, were you able to gather information from how that was portrayed to you? Were you able to answer any questions? Were you able to gather a lot of information by how it was presented to you? Why not?
From the video,
Yeah,
because like, no one, like,
it's confusing, isn't it?
they're just going back and forth and
Yeah, and it's hard to hear anything, and it's hard to decipher the bits and pieces that you actually need to pull out of it to be able to get your question answered. There wasn't a direct thing. Agree or disagree? If somebody asks you a question, you'd rather hear yes or no. You don't want to hear a 30-minute synopsis of yes or no. It's confusing. You lose it in translation. Okay, so going back and forth and back and forth, it's hard to hear what you need to hear to form an opinion. Okay. So I was telling the other class, one of the best quotes that I've heard in a while came from it was an NFL football player, played at Oklahoma, and played for the Cowboys for a year, I guess, as a DT, Gerald McCoy. They had a deal where his coach, which Gerald McCoy had been in for the league for like 12, 14 years, and he had this younger coach that was just screaming at him over and over and over. And one of the reporters asked him, they said, like, you're going to let that younger guy disrespect you and yell at you and do this and do that? You've been in the league for this many years. And he said, you guys don't get it because you're not there every day. But I hear the message and I don't hear his tone. Okay. So somebody can be trying to say something to you, but if they overtone it, you lose the message within the tone. Okay. A lot of that message was lost in the tone of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it was hard to get the message that was in there. Okay. All right. The coronavirus was a topic. Biden wants to stop giving out money. The stimulus checks. There are people that are in need because jobs haven't come back. Income taxes. Biden wants to lower it. The people need their money. They earned it. Biden keeps on bringing up the white supremacist and calling Trump on it. Okay. What'd you get out of that part right there? This is kind of something that's interesting because some of the common opinions would go different on the stance of the two of that one. Was there somebody who was wanting to give out money and not give out money? Did y'all get that one? Who did you gather was the one wanting to give out money and not give out money?
Trump and Biden.
They both wanted to stop it?
No, Trump wanted to give.
Okay. I would think that was actually flipped of how it is. You know what I mean? What made you gather that opinion? You're good. And yeah, just talk what you think. No? Well, what from the part there, or what gave you your information to form that? That's just what you got out of it? I got you. No, that's fine as far as that goes. So then kind of a big thing for you guys to kind of understand is, once you hear stuff, research it. You know what I mean? Because I can sit up here and tell you something that can be wrong all day long. And if you don't go check it, then you're just believing what I say and then that's it. Okay, just by trust on there. All right, let's see what we got right here. The debate developed into an unrelenting volley of personal attacks and interruption. 100% agree. The president offered a simple defense for the low amount of income taxes. Biden cited the staggering coronavirus death toll and the case numbers in the United States. Trump brought up Biden's sons having drug problems. That was pretty surprising. Okay. So then let's get to this part. Both candidates, if you talked to each other in that manner, what do you think would probably happen? Probably fight each other, right? All right. If you talked to your elder, your parent, a principal, anybody else in that manner, what do you think would happen? You'd be in big trouble, right? So it's kind of disheartening as a adult and as a person with children to both sides could not come to an agreement to where you could civilly discuss things. Is that something that's wrong with America right now? Yeah, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of civil discussion. It's a lot of overactions that kind of go on. All right. Trump tried to paint Biden's health care plan. All right. Did anybody on either side give a clear description of how to fix COVID? No, wasn't any plan on either side. And you said, that's one of your big issues that you like to press on to, Barnes, is how it goes with the idea of what you would end up seeing as who's going to help. How's it going to help? What's going to go on right there? Trump was saying that Biden didn't do anything in 47 years of government. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Hasn't done anything.
Hadn't done anything. Been there. Ton of times. All right, you had a lot of opportunities to change stuff, but didn't necessarily change anything that was there. Okay. Then on the other side of it, it was Biden that said, well, you've been here for 4 years and messed this many things up. You know what I mean? So they kind of both try to negate each other's comments that was on there. Go back to, what was it, Reagan's deal that was there? We saw this on a CNN news clip whenever they were questioning how old Reagan was. And he said, I'm not going to bring up my candidate's youth and lack of experience. And he was joking in a manner that he said it as compared to, both of these dudes were kind of attacking each other. Trump said that Biden only had small rallies because nobody would show up. Biden says, what does that say? I don't know what that one is. Trump said it was what it is, talked about COVID. The moderator would interrupt. Biden was very confident. Okay, says both sides were not civil with the matter, saying shut up and cutting each other off multiple times. Nothing was really achieved due to the childish arguing. And that's kind of sad that a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid can see the difference in between how two adults should act. That's saying something there. Saying rude things about each other, interrupting the questions of each other. They just argued and they tried to make a point whenever it was supposed to pledge. Was very strange and chaotic that was there. All right. So let me ask you this one. If one of the main topics was COVID, what's the next main topic to me would be the idea of race and violence in our cities. Okay. So what are some of the things that you would be concerned about, or what are some of the things that you would like to see on that right there with you speaking? What do you think? Uh-huh. What do you think about it? What's your opinion on that right there?
We're taking it too far.
Okay. Taking it too far. All right. As in how?
Because you can have a peaceful protest like the one here where nothing was going on, there was no violence, but other people want to go destroy buildings and harm each other for no apparent reason. Like I've seen a video where an innocent kid just walking to go eat something was wearing a Trump shirt and got jumped
Yeah.
for no reason.
Are you more apt to listen to the message that was portrayed with the Stephenville deal that happened here than you are to what you are seeing in other places?
Like half of the riots that happen in other places don't even make sense because the riots are, some riots are different, but the Black Lives Matter riots, there are Black people hurting other Black people. So how is that message going to be sent out that Black Lives Matter when the same race is hurting each other?
Gotcha.
It doesn't make any sense. The riots are dumb.
So let's take this one back a step for a second. And the key word that you're using is riot versus protest, correct? Protests are great for the American people because they can demonstrate, and that's a freedom that you have to be able to express what you need to say. That's an avenue you have as an American person. Other countries, you don't have that opportunity. The riot term goes into the same thing as the extremist term. You know what I mean? You go overboard with it. It goes far to the point where you lose all credibility of what you're doing based upon you going overboard. Okay. So again, whether you agree or don't agree with the message, the difference of what was portrayed in Stephenville as honestly a peaceful, informative, and whether you agree or not agree. So let me tell you this one. How many of you ever been in a conversation with somebody and they got through with the conversation and you're like, what in the world are they talking about? Okay. Your teachers. So, you may not agree with one single word that they said, but if you listen to it, you at least can have an understanding, maybe, of why they think the way that they do. You don't have to agree with them. You can stand firm on your principles and values and beliefs, but it's always good to know where the other side comes from and why. You know what I mean? Again, you don't have to agree with it. You might change your mind and agree with it, all right? But the difference of, like you're saying, they lose the message in the tone, being so over counterproductive to what's going on. A lot of times the message is lost. And at the same time, you see people, that are part of the movement that are like, stop doing what you're doing. You're ruining it for me also, because they want to have, the same image, the same belief, the same ideas. They just want to get them across. But it's hard to if you have somebody else that outweighs it that's there. Okay, thanks for your comments. Good. What else? What do you think? It's where you speak. Got to have a little bit of talking. That's what a conversation is. Richards. I know you're opinionated. What do you think, Richards? Scared to talk? Well, you're not saying anything. That's enough. So on that instance right there, again, you should start forming your opinions. Okay. Should you form your opinions based upon solely what your parents tell you? No, because you're a young adult. Should you lean on them for guidance and reflection of, let me ask you this question, mom or dad, and then that way you can form your own opinion. All right. Should you do that? Yes. I'll give you an example. Coach Weisner, he has a daughter that is 1,000 times different in opinion of what he feels, like staunch conservative. Daughter ends up going to the University of Texas, or not Texas. That's where she was going to end up going. But the idea of a very, very liberal idea, still live in the same household, still love each other, still listen to each other and respect each other's opinions, but they're completely on different ends of the spectrum that are there. All right. What about the idea of the integrity of the election? What was brought up on that one? What does that mean? What does integrity mean? If I say you have good integrity, what does that mean? What do you think, Barnes? What does integrity mean?
I can't think of a definition for it.
Tell me what you think it is. If I said the word integrity, what's the first thing that pops into your brain?
Like morals, I guess?
Good morals. So the integrity, the idea of it being truthful, the idea of it being correct. Okay. If you have bad integrity, I don't think that the person's a very good person. Okay. So what was the idea of the integrity of the election? What were they questioning? What was the issue with the integrity of the election? IGT says the votes, right? What was wrong with the votes? They made one example.
There was a bunch of military ballots thrown in the trash.
Okay, there was an example that was said that there's a possibility of losing these votes back and forth. Then the other side brought up the idea that, that we've been doing it since, 1865 per se, that it was a write-in ballot, that you were able to cast your ballots there. Okay. Military one, that's the big deal though. It's vetted. Like, that those people are legitimately those people because they're in the military. They've gone through multiple background checks, everything else. Now you're opening it up to everybody, as in the public, because of COVID and whether people go to the courthouse or whether people stay away from the courthouse. So that kind of opens up a whole new avenue that's there. Did this help you decide who you should vote for? Raise your hand if you think it did. Okay, raise your hand if you want more information. Raise your hand if it did not help you decide who you need to vote for. Okay, so not an zealous amount of people said yes on this one because of the lack of information that was there. So hopefully on the next couple ones that are there, I've already seen something that said the next one's gonna happen in a Chili's parking lot. I might as well just throw down and just call it good. But hopefully for the American public, it happens that it is a informative debate rather than what it was right there on last night. That's it for today.